In 1990, my family and I were living in Haiti, in rural Haiti, in the village of Kajak, and we decided that we would like to take a trip and go to Cape Haitian and see the Citadel. The Citadel is an old fortress that was built in the early 1800s. The Haitians had won their independence from France in the early 1800s, and then they were worried about the French coming back to retake over the island. And so they built this fortress up on top of the mountain on the north side of the country so that they'd be able to see the French battleships coming if the French decided to return. It was built as a massive structure. It was built the cost of a lot of lives and using a lot of slave labor. It was just but it's a massive fortress on top of a mountain. It's a very uh, famous building and very famous in Haitian history. And so we thought we'd like to go see that, and we decided to take a number of people from Kajak with us to go up to see the Citadel. So I borrowed a truck from the mission. We didn't have a vehicle at the time, and so I borrowed a truck. It was a little Isuzu pickup with a diesel engine. It was kind of an underpowered uh, vehicle, and it wasn't a full size pickup truck. It was a little truck, and so we took about a dozen people and headed for the Citadel. We left um, in the morning and we um, drove. I think we spent a night in Port-au-Prince on our way up there, and then the next morning we left Port-au-Prince and we went headed up to Cape Haitian. We got to Cape Haitian. We stayed in a hotel there overnight, and then the next morning we were going to head up to the Citadel, look at the Citadel, and then head back home. So we went to the Citadel, and the Citadel, of course, like I said, is up on a mountain, and it was the road going up to the Citadel. There was a parking lot about halfway up the mountain, and then from there you can either hire donkeys to take you the rest of the way up, or you can walk up from the parking lot. So we were going to drive up to the parking lot and then walk up from there. Well, the road was so steep that the Isuzu pickup just stalled, and so everybody got off the back. And Pastor Paul and Edith and I were in the front, and so then we took off. But then we got to some spots that were so steep that the truck couldn't go even. It stalled out even with just three of us in the truck. So I was going to park it beside the road and well, we'll just walk from here and we'll get it and come down. But the people that I had taken that had gotten off were walking. They came running up behind and they're saying, "We'll push it." And I was saying, "Well, why do you want to push it? Like, we'll just just park it here." And they said, "Well, if we push it up, then we can ride it down." I said, "Yeah, that makes sense. That's right." So um, they pushed it. I'd get going, and then I'd go as far as I could, and then when it would stall, I'd stand on the brake and wait till they caught up to me, and then they'd push it again and get it going. And we got it up to the parking lot that way. And we went up. We did our tour of the Citadel, and then we came back down to the parking lot and headed back home. As we were coming down the mountain from the Citadel, there was a ticking noise that the truck was making. The faster I went, the faster the ticking sound was. It didn't go with the speed of the engine, it went with the speed of the truck. So Pastor Paul said to me, "Pastor Merle, do you hear that noise?" And I said, "Yeah, I do hear that noise." And he said, "What is that?" I said, I don't know. I'm not a mechanic. I don't know anything about mechanics. I have no idea what it is." And he said, "We better check." So we stopped and we looked under the truck and we checked things out and couldn't find anything anywhere and couldn't see anything. And Pastor Paul said, "Oh, this is serious. Like we're a long way from home, and if this truck breaks down, we're in big trouble. We need to pray." And so we prayed for the truck, and I backed back and forth a couple times, and then we took off, and the sound was gone. Okay, so we went home. A few days after we got home, Pastor Paul came to my house, and we were talking, and he said, "Do you remember that? Do you remember that sound that the truck was making when we were coming down the mountain from the Citadel?" I said, "Yeah, I do remember that." And he said, "What do you think that was?" And I said, "I don't know. Probably, I think it was probably a stone that was stuck in the tire, and when I backed back and forth a couple times, it fell out, and then everything was fine." He said, "Pastor Merle, there was something seriously wrong with that truck. We were in big trouble. That truck could have broken down. We could have been robbed. We could have even been killed. We were so far from home, we didn't know anybody there. And we prayed, and God fixed that truck, and you don't even believe it." Okay, all right, I believe it, yes. But you see, in Western world and North America, we're raised with the scientific uh, trained in the scientific method and cause and effect and but we often don't put a lot of uh, stock in the spiritual side of things. People in other cultures sometimes are much more aware of behind the scenes, the spiritual things that are taking place in the world around us. And so when he asked what was wrong with the truck, my mind immediately went to a scientific explanation. There was the stone was making a sound. When I backed back and forth a couple times, it fell out, it stopped. His mind immediately went to a spiritual explanation. Something was seriously wrong with the truck. We prayed and God fixed it. We don't know which was true. Either one could have been true. And for those of us who have been trained in the scientific method, it's good for us to remember there is a spiritual side to life. There are things that are unseen, and sometimes the explanation for things that happen are scientific. There's a scientific explanation for it. Sometimes there's a spiritual explanation, and we should be aware that both exist and that God is in control of both the scientific and the spiritual.